Two hearts, one battle. And the cosmos observed humanity had always looked at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. In the year 2476, humans had spread out from Earth to settle on distant worlds. They had built huge stations that orbited dying stars, deep space colonies, and fleets that traveled between them. Life was difficult, but people adapted. They were proud of their ability to survive. Yet, despite all their progress, humans had never known they were being watched. Commander Elias Rook sat in the control room of the Farpoint listening station. The station floated quietly around a blue star that was slowly burning out. The light from the star made the metal walls shine faintly, giving the room a calm, almost peaceful feeling. But Elias did not feel calm. He watched the screens with tired eyes. For days, signals from nearby space had been strange. Some of them were just interference, but others seemed deliberate. He did not know what to make of it. Mira Vale, a young systems analyst, moved quickly past the rows of consoles. She carried a tablet filled with data streams. Mira had joined Farpoint a year ago, and her curiosity often got her into trouble. She was not afraid of the unknown. In fact, she liked it. She believed that behind every strange signal, there was something waiting to be discovered. Elias watched her work, admiring her confidence. "Commander," Mira said, her voice tense, "you need to see this." She pointed to a screen that displayed a series of irregular pulses. The pattern was complex, unlike anything the station had ever recorded. It was not random. Someone, or something, was sending a message. Elias leaned forward, squinting at the screen. He tapped the console. "Where did it come from?" he asked. "Outside the star system," Mira replied. "Far beyond our charts. We've never seen a signal like this. It's older than anything in human history." The usual hum of machinery seemed louder as the signal continued to pulse. Elias felt a strange chill run down his spine. He had been in space for over 20 years and had faced many dangers, but this feeling was different. It was not fear. It was curiosity mixed with a warning he could not place. "Prepare the recording for transmission to Earth," he said finally. "We need experts to look at this." Mira hesitated. "Do you think this could be intelligent?" she asked. Elias shook his head. "I don't know, but we won't ignore it. Humanity has always been brave when facing the unknown." Far beyond the station, in the empty dark of space, ancient watchers drifted silently. They were huge, black shapes that reflected no light, moving through the cosmos with no need for propulsion. They had been watching for millennia, cataloging civilizations and testing their strength. Most species were too weak, too short-lived, or too violent to survive. Humanity, they noted, was different. Humans were curious, adaptive, and unpredictable. This made them candidates for observation. Aboard Farpoint, Mira and Elias spent the next few hours studying the signal. It repeated in cycles, patterns within patterns. Mira's fingers flew across her console, decoding fragments that hinted at a language unlike anything humans had seen. Each pulse was precise, almost mathematical, but it carried a rhythm that felt like intention. The more she worked, the more she felt that someone was communicating directly with them. Suddenly, the station's alarm sounded. Red lights flashed. Elias jumped to his feet, gripping the console. "Status report." Mira's fingers moved faster. "Something is approaching the system. It's huge. And it's not a ship we recognize." Outside the windows, space seemed empty. Yet sensors detected a massive object, invisible to the naked eye. Its size dwarfed the station. Elias felt a weight settle in his chest. Whatever it was, it had been watching them for a long time. He knew that the signal and this arrival were connected. "Prepare defenses," Elias ordered. "We don't know what it wants." Mira hesitated. "Commander, it might not be hostile. It could be a probe or a research vessel." Elias shook his head. "We cannot take chances. Humanity survives by being careful and ready." As the crew scrambled, Mira continued analyzing the signal. She noticed that the pulses seemed to respond to the station's own transmissions. It was a dialogue, even if unintentional. She looked at Elias, eyes wide. "Commander, I think it's testing us. It wants to see how we react." Elias stared at her, then at the empty void outside. "Testing us for what?" Mira did not answer. No one could. But somewhere far beyond their sensors, the ancient watchers observed every movement. They saw the crew's careful calculations, their decisions under pressure, and their ability to adapt. They noted every moment of hesitation, every spark of ingenuity. This species, the watchers realized, had something no other species had: resilience. Hours passed, and the strange object remained in orbit, invisible but present. The crew worked tirelessly, documenting analyzing and preparing for any threat. Mira noticed something odd. Every decision they made, every maneuver, seemed to provoke a slight change in the readings from the object. It was as if the Watchers were learning from them as much as they were learning about it. Elias finally allowed himself to rest for a few minutes. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. Mira sat beside him, tablet in hand, still fascinated by the signal. "Do you ever wonder," she said softly, "if they are alive? Or if they are just machines?" Elias thought about it. "I don't know. But life takes many forms. Maybe intelligence does too. What matters is how we respond. That is what makes us human." The night, or what passed for night in the eternal orbit around a dying star, stretched on. The signal continued to pulse, and the invisible watcher drifted silently in space. The station felt both alive and fragile, a tiny human presence in an enormous cosmos that had long moved on without them. Suddenly, the monitors flickered, and a new pattern appeared in the signal. It was different now, more complex, more urgent. Mira gasped. "Commander, look, it's sending something new." Elias leaned forward. The pattern was unlike anything they had seen before. It was a challenge, a puzzle, and perhaps a warning all at once. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. Humanity was being tested in a way they could barely comprehend. For the first time in his long career, Elias felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The unknown had arrived at their doorstep, and they had no choice but to face it. The signal pulsed again, almost as if acknowledging him, acknowledging them all. It was a reminder that humanity was no longer alone. Not really. Mira looked out the viewport, imagining the Watchers drifting silently beyond the edge of known space. She felt a thrill of excitement. This was bigger than exploration, bigger than survival. This was a conversation with the cosmos itself, and humanity had just answered. Elias stood and joined her, both of them silent as they watched the stars. Somewhere out there, ancient eyes recorded every moment, every heartbeat, every choice. Humanity had been marked as a candidate, but for what, they could not know. All they could do was continue to adapt, to learn, to survive, and perhaps to rise to the challenge that the universe had placed before them. As the blue star dimmed slowly outside, the signal continued to pulse, a rhythm that mirrored life itself. Farpoint Station was small, fragile, and insignificant in the vastness of space, yet it was the first step in a journey that would test the very nature of humanity. Commander Elias Rook and Mira Vale, along with the small crew, were now part of something far greater than themselves. The cosmos had observed them, and for the first time they felt the weight and the promise of being seen. Across human space, the strange signal from Farpoint Station had begun to ripple through communication networks. Some thought it was a technical glitch, while others feared it could be a warning. On the starship horizon, Captain Aaron Hale stood at the bridge, his hands gripping the rail as he watched the view screen. The ship was on a routine patrol, far from inhabited worlds, but now anomalies appeared on their sensors. Ships vanished from logs, stars flickered unpredictably, and strange energy spikes pulsed across the void. Aran felt the tension settle in his chest. He had commanded many missions, but nothing like this. His first officer, Joran Cade, approached with a tablet in hand. "Captain, several nearby colonies report blackouts. Communications are intermittent. It is spreading fast." He paused, eyes troubled. "Some ships are missing entirely." Aaron nodded slowly. "Then we head there immediately. Find out what is happening and help if we can." His voice was calm, but inside he felt the weight of responsibility. The crew looked to him for direction, and he could not fail them. Meanwhile on Earth, linguist Tamsin Rowe was studying the signal from Farpoint. She worked at the Global Institute for Cosmic Studies, and the strange pulses had captured her attention. As she examined the pattern, she noticed fragments of a language hidden within radiation bursts. Each fragment was unlike any known human script, yet there was order. She began piecing it together, hoping to find a message. The more she decoded, the more urgent it seemed. Tamsin felt a chill run down her spine as the patterns aligned. They were not greetings or casual observations, they were tests. The message was showing humanity its own weaknesses, challenging it to survive. She tried to warn the authorities, but they hesitated, unsure what to do with a language no one could fully understand. Humanity was being evaluated without knowing it. Back on the horizon, Aaron's fleet approached a system in chaos. Planets that were once bustling with human colonies now lay in eerie silence. Energy grids were down, and debris from ships floated across the void. The horizon's sensors detected distortions in the gravitational field, as if space itself had been bent. Aaron gave orders to deploy rescue shuttles and scan for life. In one orbiting colony, a shuttle found survivors clinging to wreckage. Among them was a young engineer named Kira Solon, who had witnessed her ship tear apart in a sudden wave of energy. She described what had happened, and her account matched the anomalies the Horizon had detected. Aaron realized that the chaos was deliberate. Someone or something was testing humanity, forcing them to react under extreme conditions. Hours turned into days as the fleet worked tirelessly. The energy spikes continued, shifting unpredictably. Ships that tried to approach certain areas were thrown off course or vanished entirely. Crews worked together, improvising repairs and coordinating rescues. R noticed a strange pattern emerging. The anomalies seemed to respond to human action. Every decision the fleet made caused a slight shift in the chaos, almost as if the universe itself was paying attention. During a rare moment of calm, Aaron called a meeting with his officers. "We cannot fight what we do not understand," he said. "We must adapt, use our minds, our creativity, and our will. That is how we survive. That is how humanity will survive." Joran nodded. "Captain, it is as if this is not just about power or technology. They want to see how we respond, how we make choices when everything is against us." Aaron stared out at the void. "Then we show them. We show them what humans can do." His words carried a quiet determination that spread through the room. Meanwhile, Tamsin continued her research on Earth. She discovered that the fragments in the signal were not random. They formed a pattern similar to neural pathways, suggesting that whoever had sent them understood complex thought and behavior. She realized that this was more than a warning. It was a challenge to think, to solve problems, and to survive. As the Horizon fleet moved deeper into the affected systems, the disturbances grew more dangerous. Gravity wells appeared suddenly, pulling ships towards stars that should have been stable. Temporal fluctuations caused instruments to malfunction, and crews experienced disorientation. Despite all this, the fleet adapted. They used unconventional tactics, coordinated in new ways, and improvised solutions that no previous military manuals had ever suggested. One night, as Aaron observed the fleet through the main view screen, a sudden spike of energy threatened to destroy a colony. Without hesitation, he ordered a controlled maneuver that placed the Horizon directly between the explosion and the inhabitants. Shields glowed and systems strained under the pressure, but the ship held. The colony survived. Joran approached him quietly. "Captain, every move we make seems to affect the anomalies. They are watching." Aaron nodded. "Let them watch. We will not fail. We adapt, we survive, we protect. That is what humans do." Across space, unseen eyes recorded these moments. The ancient watchers noted how humans responded to crisis. They had expected fear, confusion, and chaos, but they saw something else. Humans acted with courage, intelligence, and unity. They were unpredictable in ways no machine or calculation could anticipate. The fleet's actions became bolder. They began to anticipate the anomalies, using patterns in the chaos to guide their rescues. Ships that had been lost were recovered. Colonies that seemed doomed were stabilized. The observers were forced to pause and reconsider. This species was unlike any they had cataloged. It did not simply react to stimuli. It learned, adapted, and cooperated in ways that made survival possible even in impossible situations. On one of the Horizon's shuttles, Kira Solon worked tirelessly to repair a damaged engine while communicating with the fleet. She realized that every small decision mattered. Her quick thinking saved lives. Her actions, along with countless others, demonstrated the ingenuity of humanity under pressure. Back on Earth, Tamsin decoded a critical piece of the signal. It revealed that the challenges were escalating intentionally, designed to push humans to their limits. She sent her findings to Captain Hale and the fleet. When they received the information, it changed their perspective. They were no longer merely surviving random events. They were participating in a test, a cosmic examination of their species. With this understanding, Aaron adjusted his strategy. Instead of avoiding dangers, he began to engage them in controlled ways, using human intuition and problem-solving to turn the anomalies into opportunities. The fleet became more coordinated, more effective, and more confident. Even in the face of impossible odds, they learned to trust their instincts and each other. The observers, hidden and silent, watched these developments with growing curiosity. They had rarely seen such resilience. Most civilizations crumbled under pressure, but humans adapted in real time. They made mistakes, yes, but they learned from them immediately. Their capacity for improvisation and cooperation was unmatched. As the days continued, the fleet reached the heart of the anomalies. Entire systems were unstable, with gravity fields and energy distortions threatening to consume anything in their path. Aron and his crew faced the greatest challenge yet: They knew that success would not only save lives, but prove something important about humanity itself. Using every skill and insight gained over the previous days, the fleet navigated the hazards. Ships moved in perfect coordination, rescuing civilians, stabilizing systems, and neutralizing energy spikes wherever possible. It was a delicate balance, requiring courage, quick thinking, and absolute trust. At the climax of the operation, a massive energy wave threatened to sweep through the entire fleet. Iran and Joran coordinated a countermaneuver that used the anomalies themselves to shield the ships. The plan was risky, but it worked. The energy wave passed harmlessly, leaving the fleet and colonies intact. Humans had turned the test into an advantage. The observers recorded this moment with interest. The unexpected solution, born from collaboration and ingenuity, had not been predicted. This species did not merely survive. It thrived under trial. The observers began to realize that humanity's value lay not in weapons or technology, but in its unpredictability, resilience, and unity. As the fleet regrouped, Aaron looked around at his crew. Exhaustion, relief, and pride were etched on every face. He knew that they had faced something extraordinary, something that would shape the future of humanity. And though the challenges were far from over, they had proven that they could rise to meet any trial. On Earth, Tamsin reflected on the signal and the events unfolding in space. Humanity had answered the call of the unknown, and in doing so, had demonstrated qualities that even the Watchers had not anticipated. The test was far from complete, but the first victories had been won. The observers marked humanity as a species of interest, capable of growth, learning, and unexpected brilliance. For the first time, humans understood that the universe was not simply a backdrop for survival. It was a living challenge, full of tests and lessons, and humanity had shown that it could meet them with courage, intelligence, and heart. The signal continued to pulse, a reminder that the observers were watching and that the journey had only just begun. The space between stars was usually empty and calm, but now it felt broken. After the events that shook human space, many ships were moving at once, carrying survivors, supplies, and hope. One such ship was the long-range transport vessel Dawnpath. It was not built for war. It carried families, engineers, medics, and traders who had been forced to flee unstable systems. Its pilot, Leo Sarin, guided the ship with steady hands and a calm mind. Leo believed that saving lives was more important than orders or pride. The Dawn Path was moving toward a safe corridor when space suddenly twisted. Alarms blared. The stars outside stretched into lines as gravity pulled the ship off course. Leo fought the controls, teeth clenched, as a massive force dragged the vessel into a collapsing gravity well. Power failed across several decks. People screamed as the ship shook violently. At the same moment, the warship Vanguard entered the same region. It was part of Captain Aaron Hale's fleet, sent ahead to scout dangerous zones. The Vanguard was stronger than the Dawn Path, but even it struggled against the sudden distortion. Its commander, Aaron Cole, shouted orders as systems failed one by one. The gravity well grew stronger, pulling both ships toward its center. There was no time to escape alone. In a desperate move, Aaron ordered the Vanguard to lock onto the Dawn Path. Energy fields flared as the two ships collided softly, their hulls grinding together. Emergency systems activated, forming a temporary bond. The impact threw crew members to the floor. Lights flickered. Silence followed. When the shaking stopped, both ships were no longer two. They were one broken structure drifting between realities. Inside the merged hull, corridors no longer matched maps. Doors led to unfamiliar rooms. Air pressure dropped in several sections. Leo pulled himself up from his chair and activated his communicator. Static answered. He took a deep breath and stepped into the corridor. On the Vanguard side, Aaron Cole regained consciousness near the bridge. His crew was scattered, some injured, some trapped. He quickly assessed the damage. Weapons were useless. Engines were gone. Life support was unstable. Survival depended on cooperation. Aaron met Leo in a shattered corridor where the walls of both ships had fused into twisted metal. They stared at each other, strangers bound by disaster. Leo spoke first, voice calm but firm. "We need to stabilize airflow. There are civilians on my ship." Aaron frowned. "We need command structure. Panic will kill us faster than the void." Their views clashed immediately. Aaron believed in order and control. Leo believed in empathy and quick action. Yet the situation left no room for pride. Both knew that survival required working together. They divided tasks. Aaron organized repair teams from trained crew members. Leo moved among civilians, calming them, assigning simple jobs, and keeping fear from spreading. Oxygen levels dropped, but slowly. Power flickered, but did not die. Piece by piece, they held the merged ship together. As hours passed, strange effects appeared. Time felt uneven. Some crew members swore they heard whispers. Others saw shadows move where no light existed. Sensors reported impossible readings. The gravity well had pulled them into a space between dimensions, a place not meant for human minds. Leo and Aaron met again near a cracked viewport. Outside, space did not look like space. Colors bent and shifted. Stars pulsed like living things. Leo felt small yet strangely calm. Aaron felt uneasy. "This place," Aaron said quietly. "It feels like we are being watched." Leo nodded. "Maybe we are, but fear will not help us now. People need hope." The ancient watchers observed closely. This was not a planned test. It was an unexpected result of earlier trials. Yet what they saw fascinated them. Two leaders, different in nature, forced into unity. One driven by command, the other by compassion. Together they kept humans alive in impossible space. A fire broke out in one section. Aaron rushed to contain it, sealing bulkheads even though it cut off escape routes. Leo rerouted civilians through damaged maintenance shafts, risking collapse but saving lives. Their choices were different, but they complemented each other. When oxygen reached critical levels, Leo suggested opening controlled vents to equalize pressure. Aaron hesitated. It went against protocol, but he trusted Leo's judgment. The plan worked. Air stabilized. Lives were saved. Slowly, respect grew between them. As repairs continued, a sudden surge shook the ship. The gravity well began to collapse. Either the ship would be torn apart or thrown back into normal space. Aaron calculated the odds. The valve was low. Leo gathered the crew and spoke to them. "We may not all make it," he said honestly, "but we will face this together. Help each other. Trust each other. That is how humans survive." His words spread calm. Fear remained, but it no longer ruled. Aaron made a decision. He rerouted all remaining power into a single-engine burst, timed with the gravity collapse. It was reckless. It ignored safety limits, but it was the only chance. The engine fired. The ship screamed as space folded and snapped. For a moment, nothing existed. Then stars returned to their proper places. The merged ship was free, drifting but alive. Cheers echoed through broken corridors. People cried. Some laughed. Some simply sat in silence, breathing. The Dawn Path and Vanguard slowly separated, magnetic locks releasing. Both ships were badly damaged, but they existed. They had survived. Aaron and Leo met one last time before parting. Aaron extended his hand. "You saved lives today. Your way works. So does yours. Strength and kindness are better together." As the ships moved apart, unseen eyes recorded everything. The observers noted a rare pattern. Emotional bonds had increased survival probability. Cooperation between contrasting leaders created strength beyond calculation. For the first time, uncertainty entered their records. Humanity was not just adaptable, it was connected. Far away, the signal pulsed again, slower now, deeper. The test was changing, and the universe itself seemed to pause, watching what humans would become next. The ancient watchers had remained hidden for eons, observing life across the cosmos. But after seeing humanity survive impossible trials and adapt with cooperation and resilience, they decided to make themselves known. Their forms were enormous, darker than space, moving silently above human worlds. The first appearance was over the planet Ardent, 7, a colony that had barely survived the disturbances of the collapsing systems. Citizens stopped in the streets, looking up at shadows that blotted out the sun. Ships hovered in orbit, enormous and silent, with shapes that defied description. Fear gripped the planet. People had never seen anything like this. On Earth, General Cale Moreno coordinated the planetary defenses. His voice was steady, but inside he felt unease. The Watchers were far beyond anything humanity could match in strength or speed, yet Cale refused to panic. Every fleet, every orbital weapon, and every shield generator was activated. Humans would show courage, even against a foe they could barely understand. In the colonies, civilians scrambled into shelters. Engineer Veilin moved among the frightened people, setting up safe zones and emergency systems. She knew that fear could destroy faster than any weapon. Calm minds would survive, even here, under the shadows of giants. The Watchers did not immediately attack. Instead, they broadcast a message in a language that reached human minds directly, bypassing technology. The message was simple but chilling. Humanity would face a final trial, The Watchers would create an enemy that mirrored humanity's fears, its failures, and its violence. Only by confronting it together could humans prove their worth. Cale gathered his top commanders, including Admiral Aaron Cole, who had survived the merged ship incident. "We are not alone anymore," Cale said. "This is a trial unlike any other, but we will face it with the strengths that make us human: courage, intelligence, and unity." Meanwhile, on the planet Solara, a city's population watched massive structures form above them, shimmering like liquid metal. The enemy the Watchers had created began to appear. It was a perfect imitation of human military forces, but faster, stronger, and more precise. Weapons fired with deadly accuracy, destroying training facilities and small fleets in minutes. Panic erupted. Admiral Aaron coordinated the first strikes. He and Cale understood that conventional attacks would fail. Instead of meeting the enemy directly, they needed a new strategy. They studied the enemy's behavior, noting patterns and weaknesses. Each fleet movement, each defensive adjustment was made carefully, but the enemy was always one step ahead. Valen proposed a radical plan. Instead of fighting with weapons alone, humans would create situations that required cooperation rather than domination. They would use empathy and intelligence to save civilians and support weaker units, forcing the enemy to respond in ways that could be predicted. It was risky, but it was the only option. Cale agreed. Orders spread quickly through the ranks. Ships abandoned perfect strategic positions to rescue civilian transports. Ground forces moved to protect hospitals and supply lines, even when it meant leaving key positions exposed. The enemy advanced, expecting humans to follow the same patterns of logic that it had been programmed to anticipate. But humans acted unpredictably, valuing life over tactical advantage. The first battle unfolded across orbit and the surface. Cities burned, fleets were shattered, and the enemy's attacks were precise. Yet, wherever humans prioritized saving each other, their losses decreased. They learned from every encounter, improvising with every failure. The Watchers observed silently, recording every choice, every act of bravery, every sacrifice. On Solara, a young pilot named Ren Ferris led a squadron to shield evacuating civilians. His ship was hit, engines failing, but he refused to abandon the fleeing transports. Using unconventional maneuvers, he guided them through debris and enemy fire, saving hundreds of lives. Each act of courage forced the enemy to adapt, but it could not predict humanity's empathy. This unpredictability frustrated the Watchers, who had relied on logic for millions of years. General Cale coordinated planetary defenses while overseeing the operation from the command station. Valen's strategy began to show results. Entire fleets, once vulnerable to destruction, were now supported by civilian and military coordination. The enemy struggled to keep up, miscalculating human decisions that did not follow patterns of mere survival or conquest. Every choice humans made was tied to emotion, connection, and instinct, qualities the enemy could not understand. The battle escalated. Orbital stations fired upon enemy ships to shield civilians. Rescue teams navigated ruins to evacuate survivors. Human ingenuity shone brightest under the darkest circumstances. Where machines relied on predictable sequences, humans relied on improvisation and trust. This was the turning point. The Watchers, hidden above the planet, were forced to reconsider. Humanity's strength was not in weapons or technology. It was in the ability to act as a connected species, to take risks for each other, and to adapt in ways no simulation could predict. They had expected chaos and destruction. Instead, they saw intelligence entwined with heart. The observers recorded this carefully, noting rare patterns of unexpected resilience. The enemy, designed to exploit weakness, began to falter. Human fleets coordinated in ways that disrupted its algorithms. Ground units synchronized with orbital strikes, while evacuation teams moved through danger zones in perfect timing. Each small success multiplied. The enemy's advantage dwindled. Cities that seemed doomed survived. Fleets that were on the brink of annihilation endured. In the final hours of the battle, Cale led a direct strike against the enemy's command vessel. It was a calculated risk. They knew the enemy expected a standard attack, but Cale's strategy used human ingenuity and unpredictability. His forces executed precise maneuvers that could not be anticipated, and the enemy's command structure collapsed. The Watchers noted the outcome with fascination. Humans had turned the trial into a demonstration of something more than skill or power. They had used cooperation, intelligence, and empathy to overcome forces designed to destroy them. The observers were forced to acknowledge that this species had qualities rare in the universe: unpredictability and unity combined with resilience and compassion. When the battle ended, human forces regrouped. There was no celebration, only relief and reflection. Thousands of lives had been saved, but at a cost. Cities were damaged, fleets were battered, and families were lost. Yet the victory was meaningful. It was proof that humanity could face trials beyond understanding and survive. Kale, standing on the observation deck, looked up at the Watchers now retreating into the dark. "They saw what we can do," he said. "And they will remember." Valen joined him. "Yes, and we learned what we can do when we act as one. The universe may test us again, but we will be ready." Above the planet, the Watchers moved silently. Their calculations were incomplete, their predictions no longer reliable. Humanity had shown a capacity for action, empathy, and unpredictability that could not be reduced to formulas. They were a species of interest, a civilization marked by its heart as well as its mind. Far across space, survivors from other systems received the news. Humanity had faced a trial created by beings far older and stronger, and they had survived through unity. People on distant colonies felt hope. People on damaged planets felt purpose. And the Watchers, observing silently, began to record what had been rare in the history of the cosmos: uncertainty. The message from the trial was clear. Humanity was no longer simply surviving. It was thriving. And the universe itself had taken notice. The Watchers withdrew, leaving behind the scars of battle and the lessons learned. Humans would rebuild stronger and wiser, and somewhere beyond the stars, beings older than imagination recorded every choice, every act of courage, and every heartbeat that had mattered. Humanity had passed the trial, but the journey was far from over. Within the Council of the Ancient Watchers, debate had grown intense. Some argued that humanity's unpredictable nature made them too dangerous to continue existing. Others countered that unpredictability was precisely what made them fascinating, rare, and valuable. The fracturing of the cosmic scale used to judge civilizations was a first in the Watchers' long history. They had never seen a species act with such emotional complexity and strategic unpredictability. Meanwhile, humanity was still recovering. The battle against the Watchers' created enemy had left fleets battered, colonies scarred, and countless lives shaken. Yet, amid the chaos, humans were already rebuilding, adapting, and learning from their mistakes. Commander Elias Rook, now back at Farpoint Station, received reports from across human space. Survivors were safe. Colonies were stabilizing. Ships that had been missing were returning. The resilience of humans was once again proving itself. Rin Calder, a pilot who had helped coordinate evacuation efforts during the trials, was called to a critical mission. A massive Watcher construct, previously undetected, had descended toward Earth. It radiated an energy so powerful that every sensor was overwhelmed. Authorities feared it carried the ability to destroy the planet in an instant, yet Ryan had no weapons left. Her ship was damaged, barely functional. It was a desperate gamble. As she approached, the construct projected a shadow that engulfed entire continents. Humanity's fear was tangible. People on Earth froze, watching as the massive shape loomed above them. Ryan's hands tightened on the controls, every system groaning under stress. She knew that retreat was impossible. The only option was to confront the construct directly, even without a chance to fight. Across the globe, General Cale Moreno coordinated evacuation and protection. Even with massive preparations, he knew that Ryan's mission carried the weight of survival. Communication systems crackled as she transmitted a single message to Earth. It was neither a plea nor a threat. It was a declaration. "We will not let fear decide our fate," she said. "Humanity fights for each other even if the universe itself stands against us." Her words spread through networks, reaching military personnel, civilians, scientists, and engineers. Hope, determination, and unity rippled through human minds. The construct paused, sensing the collective resolve of the species before it. It had expected calculation, panic, or submission. Instead, it detected courage and connection. The Watchers had never observed such a response. Ryan maneuvered closer, carefully balancing the damaged systems of her ship against the immense power of the construct. Sensors failed repeatedly, engines threatened to shut down. Yet she pressed forward. Every choice she made, every adjustment of thrust, every command sent to her ship was a measure of human intuition in its purest form. The construct lowered a massive limb toward her ship. Ryan calculated trajectory, speed, and timing. Instead of attempting to destroy it, she guided her ship to intersect its path at an angle that disrupted its energy projection. The construct recoiled, uncertain, as the maneuver was unexpected. Humans did not always act logically or predictably, and this forced hesitation was unprecedented. Back on Earth, Cale monitored the mission with bated breath. Engineers calculated possibilities. Civilians prayed. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath as the lone pilot continued her dangerous path. Ryan's courage and precise improvisation demonstrated humanity's willingness to risk everything to save others, a trait no machine, no observer, and no construct had ever anticipated. As the construct paused, the Watchers debated. Should they intervene? Should they destroy the construct before it could be challenged? Yet they remained frozen. Realizing that humanity had done what no other species had, it had confronted a cosmic force with nothing but courage and unity. The construct, sensing something beyond its design, hesitated. Ryan adjusted her course one last time, positioning her ship in the direct path of the construct's energy core. She closed her eyes briefly, knowing she could not survive the impact. Then she activated the final sequence, a maneuver that would test both her instincts and the resilience of her ship. The universe seemed to pause as the core and her vessel intersected. A flash of light engulfed the sky. Power waves rippled across the atmosphere. On Earth, cities shook. Ships in orbit shivered. The construct's energy dissipated, leaving behind a quiet calm. Ryan's ship, battered but intact, drifted slowly to the surface. She had survived. The Watchers recorded this event with deep fascination. Humans had confronted annihilation without weapons, without predictable strategy, relying instead on courage, improvisation, and empathy. The outcome defied every prediction. The cosmic scale of judgment fractured further, unable to categorize this species as simple or dangerous, weak or powerful. Humanity had transcended the categories used to judge life for eons. Across human space, survivors cheered. Relief washed over fleets and colonies alike. Ships that had been destroyed or trapped were salvaged, repaired, or returned home. Families reunited. Entire communities celebrated the success of one pilot, yet they understood that the true victory belonged to every human who had acted, adapted, and survived together. Rin Calder was hailed as a hero, yet she remained humble. She knew that it was not skill or luck alone that had saved Earth. It was the strength of the human spirit, the bond between strangers and allies, the willingness to act selflessly in the face of incomprehensible odds. Humanity had passed the most critical test yet, proving that courage and connection could outweigh overwhelming power. In the Council of the Watchers, quiet prevailed. Debate continued, but the verdict had changed. Humanity could not be erased, for it had demonstrated something rare and valuable. Its unpredictability was its strength. Its unity, its compassion, and its willingness to face the impossible without fear made it a candidate for observation, respect, and perhaps even guidance. They had underestimated humans, and the lessons were clear. On Earth, Kyle Marino addressed the public. "We have survived what seemed impossible," he said. "We faced forces beyond comprehension and emerged together. This is the essence of humanity. We fight for each other, we adapt, and we endure. Let this remind us of what we can achieve when we act as one." In colonies across human space, the message echoed. Scientists, engineers, pilots, and civilians shared stories of courage and ingenuity. Humanity had faced a test designed to destroy it, yet it had turned the trial into a demonstration of unity, adaptability, and heart. Survivors understood that the universe was watching, but now they also knew that they were not powerless, that their choices mattered, and that connection could tip the scales against even the most overwhelming odds. The Watchers recorded every detail, every heartbeat, every act of bravery. Their judgment was no longer simple. Humanity was no longer just a species to be catalogued. It was a force of unpredictable potential, a civilization capable of facing cosmic trials with intelligence, courage, and compassion. The construct's failure, the survival of Earth, and the improvisation of Ryan Calder had rewritten expectations. For humans, the day ended not with fear, but with understanding and hope. Humanity had faced a being of unimaginable power and survived through courage and unity. The Watchers retreated, leaving a quiet sky and unanswered questions. Yet, even as they vanished, humanity's resolve had grown. They were aware now that the universe might challenge them again, but they would be ready. Each act of bravery, each decision to protect others, had become a testament to their species. As Rin landed, she looked at the sky, at the stars that had watched over them through trials. She understood the truth that many had begun to feel. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was learning, growing, and showing the universe that its value was more than technology, more than force. It was heart, courage, and unity that defined them. And somewhere beyond the stars, ancient beings observed, uncertain, impressed, and perhaps for the first time respecting the species they had tested for so long. The universe was quiet after the trials. Stars shone normally again, fleets repaired, and colonies rebuilt. Humanity had survived dangers beyond comprehension, fought enemies created by ancient watchers, and learned lessons that could not be taught in books. Yet, the most remarkable change was not physical. It was a shift in awareness. Humans now knew they were seen, judged, and tested, but they also understood that observation did not mean control. Humanity had its own power, connection, courage, and the ability to adapt. On Earth, Commander Elias Rook and systems analyst Mira Vale looked up at the night sky. The Farpoint station had stabilized, and sensors reported calm across the systems. Mira held a tablet with readings from the Watcher's signals. She traced the pulses, realizing that what had once been tests were now more like invitations to continue learning. The Watchers had withdrawn, but they left subtle marks on humanity's knowledge, leaving hints and puzzles that encouraged growth. "They are gone," Elias said, voice calm but thoughtful. "Yet it feels like they are still watching." Mira nodded. "Not watching to control, but to understand. We've changed how they see us." In orbit around Ardent 7, Admiral Aaron Cole watched the fleet assemble for resupply and repairs. Pilots, engineers, and civilians worked together seamlessly. They had survived tests that should have destroyed them, and now they were stronger in skill and unity. Aaron remembered the days of chaos, the moments when instinct and cooperation had saved lives. It was clear that humans had evolved, not physically, but in purpose and spirit. On Solara, Leo Serene and Captain Aaron Hale coordinated relief for colonies hit during the trials. Families reunited, cities rebuilt, food and water reached those who had been stranded. Leo reflected on the moments aboard the merged ships, where cooperation had been necessary for survival. Those moments had changed how humans viewed each other, how leaders and civilians worked together. It was a lesson in trust and empathy, a lesson no machine could teach. Meanwhile, Ryan Calder's daring mission remained legendary. Her actions against the construct had proven the value of courage and improvisation. She walked among the fleets, sharing her experiences and listening to others. Each story she heard reinforced what humanity had learned. Every individual choice mattered, every act of bravery had a ripple effect, and humanity was stronger when its hearts and minds worked together. The Watchers, far beyond the reach of human sensors, remained silent. They recorded every outcome, every adaptation, every moment of survival. They noted that humanity's survival was not simply a product of technology or strategy, but of heart and connection. The species had demonstrated qualities that could not be fully predicted. Curiosity, courage, and cooperation had combined to create results that defied expectation. The Watchers' calculations faltered when trying to categorize humanity. Uncertainty entered their archives. Back on Earth, Tamsin Rowe continued to decode remnants of the Watchers' signals. She noticed subtle patterns that hinted at guidance rather than control. It was as if the Watchers were encouraging humans to grow, to test themselves further, not through destruction but through learning. Each discovery she made was shared with fleets and colonies, spreading knowledge and strengthening humanity's ability to respond to the unknown. General Cale Marino addressed the people, reminding them of the lessons learned. "We have faced dangers that no one else in the universe has faced," he said. "We have survived through unity, courage, and care for one another. These qualities define us. Let them guide us as we rebuild and explore further into the stars." Across human space, the survivors reflected on what had been achieved. Fleets were repaired and reinforced. Colonies were stabilized. Scientists studied the Watchers' signals. Pilots trained for unexpected scenarios. Families shared stories of courage. Humanity was no longer merely surviving. It was preparing, growing, and observing the universe as well. Elias and Mira returned to the observation deck of Farpoint Station. They watched the cosmos with new eyes. "We have survived," Mira said softly. "But more than that, we are learning. We are seeing the universe, not just being seen. We are no longer just subjects. We are participants. We can watch, learn, and act. Our survival is no longer just about responding. It is about shaping our future." In the distance, faint signals pulsed through the void. The Watchers had left hints, remnants of their presence, but no longer direct tests. They were observing from afar, not interfering. Humanity had grown enough to be respected, if not fully understood. The cosmic silence was not emptiness. It was a space filled with possibility. For the first time, humans felt that the universe was not a threat, but a challenge and a teacher. On the colonies, leaders and civilians gathered to commemorate survival and adaptation. They spoke of bravery, ingenuity, and cooperation. They acknowledged loss but celebrated life and growth. Each individual understood that their choices had contributed to something larger than themselves. Humanity was not just a species. It was a network of hearts and minds capable of responding to challenges beyond comprehension. The fleets moved in formation across the stars, ships carrying supplies, knowledge, and hope. Children and adults alike looked up at the night sky, imagining the watchers, imagining the vastness, and imagining the possibilities. The universe had been observed, and now humanity observed it back, not as a helpless subject, but as a conscious, courageous, and connected civilization. Elias, Mira, Aaron, Leo, Kale, and countless others looked up at the cosmos. They knew the Watchers remained, recording, learning, and perhaps questioning. But they also knew humanity had changed. No force could predict every human action. No machine could understand every choice made out of care or courage. Uncertainty had entered the universe. Somewhere beyond the stars, ancient beings experienced something new. They sensed unpredictability, connection, and heart. Humanity had not only survived, it had altered the way the universe perceived intelligence and life. The Watchers would remember, adapt, and perhaps respect the species they had tested for so long. Humanity continued to rebuild, explore, and learn. Knowledge spread, connection strengthened, and courage grew. The stars were no longer distant points of light. They were challenges, opportunities, and reminders of the resilience of life. Humanity had faced the impossible, survived, and emerged stronger, wiser, and aware. And in the quiet between stars where light bent and shadows stretched, the universe waited, observed, and for the first time felt the presence of a species that was not simply surviving, but watching, learning, and understanding the cosmos back. The journey had begun, but the story was far from over. Humanity had become more than a candidate. It had become a force capable of shaping its destiny among the stars.